Pottery Barn are selling these boards from $200 to $300 a piece. I'm going to show you how to make your own version for $10. Hi, I'm Jen with Woodcraft Blueprints. For this project, you're going to need a wire brush for distressing, a chisel for distressing, a scroll saw or bandsaw to cut out the shape, and an orbital sander. The wood that I'm going to use is a 1x16 by 4-inch edge glued pine board. I got this at Menards. You can also get it at Home Depot. It's 16 inches wide. These do come in various widths if you would like to get one. So this is a 4-foot piece. It's $16. I'm gonna get 2 boards out of this, making the cost of the wood at only $8. I'm gonna cut this board down to 20 inches. I'm gonna mark and measure at 16 inches. I'm gonna get a square and draw that 16-inch mark across. Okay. Then I'm gonna draw for the handle, and the handle is gonna be 2 inches wide. So I'm gonna just do a quick mark in the middle of 16 inches, which is 8 inches. So then I'll measure off 1 inch on each side, giving me 2 inches. So I've just made 2 marks there. Then I'm going to draw up. Let me get back on my line here with my square. Okay, so this part will be cut out. And since these are very, 90-degree angles, I'm actually going to soften those a little bit. So just with my pencil, I'm just gonna take and just kind of round those off so I have something to follow with my scroll saw, just as a little bit of a guide. Okay, so I kind of mark those a little bit. Now I'm gonna round each one of these corners, and one of the easiest things to do is find a paint can or any round radius and use that as a tracing guide on here. And normally I would use pencil. I will use marker for this video because it's easier for you guys to see that. And I'm just getting that paint can lined up on each end. So on the edge and then on this line. And then I'm just going to come in and draw that radius. You can use something smaller or bigger. I prefer this paint can. I used a 5-gallon bucket earlier and it was too much, so. All right, so we have our guide for our scroll saw. I'm ready to cut this out on the scroll saw. You can start at any corner you want. I do think it's easier to do the handle, start at the very top for each one. If you come around this way and then try to go down that with the grain, it just seems to be a little bit harder, so just a quick tip. If you're wondering, I'm using an Olsen brand precision ground tooth number 7 blade. Here's a tip about the scroll saw is that it's kind of a big piece. I'm using this hand to keep the piece level on this table. I'm holding it down and not letting the blade pick it up or else you'll get vibration. And then I'm using this other hand back here to actually do the steering, okay? This scroll saw is the DeWalt 20-inch variable speed DW788. I'm gonna use this edge belt sander to sand the end grains and the edges here. If you don't have one of these sanders, just take an orbital sander, turn it on its side, and you can do the same thing. This is just a little bit faster. Now with my orbital sander, I'm gonna go over this real quick, and I wanna get all those pencil marks and marker marks off and give it a quick sand. I'm rounding off all of those corners so it has that nice like worn, aged, and weathered look. Now we need to distress this board to make it look authentically worn and used. The boards that the Pottery Barn are selling, they are actually antiques. They have been used. So we need to replicate that. And what does that look like? Well, we want it lighter in the middle, a little darker on the outsides. We're gonna chew it up a little bit, and there's gonna be, you know, cut marks on there. So after I've sanded that, I've rounded those edges off. I'm going to take my chisel and go along the edge grain here. So the more it's, you know, flat with the wood, the less it will take off. So just kind of practice with it, play with it. Make sure your hand is out of the way. Don't ever put it here because you are bound to stab your hand. So make sure it's out of the way. And I just kind of go back and forth. If you have a dull chisel, it'll take a little longer. If you have a really sharp one, it's really easy to dig in, which is fine. We're just kind of getting some chips out and just making it, give it some character. Now along the end grain, it's really hard to go along like this. I actually take my chisel and just back drag it, and that will take out chunks, and it's super fast. Back to the grain here with the grain. End grain, back drag. Just kind of have fun with it. Now, on the face of this, we also need to distress it. So with your chisel, you're gonna have sharp points there. You can take it and can make some scratch marks in here as well. And go every which way. Just don't go one way, and don't make it look too perfect. Because remember, we're going for authenticity. So it's gonna have some gouges here and there, you know, that's what happens. Have some long ones, some short ones. I don't want too many deep ones, so I'm just gonna call that good. Now with my wire brush, these, I'm trying to make knife marks. So I'm gonna be going kind of this way with the grain and across, and then with the grain. But I'm gonna put like pressure down on it so it actually scratches the wood. If you're not using pine wood, it's gonna be harder to do. Pine wood's soft, so this is a lot easier. If you're using a hardwood, you're really gonna have to work at this. Now, if there's any sharp points, just take a scrap piece of sandpaper, kind of run it over. I wouldn't take your orbital to it because we don't want too much sanded off, but we do want to make sure it's kind of smooth again. Now we're going to stain the wood. I've got two colors. I have Minwax Honey, which is darker, and then Minwax Special Walnut, which is a couple shades lighter. So the dark is what we're gonna put on first, and it's gonna be irregular. So I'm gonna go around the edges. That's the first thing I'm gonna do. And when you dip your, I'm just using a cotton piece of scrap. When you dip your cloth into the stain, it's most saturated when you first bring it on your wood. So that's why I'm gonna go around the edges, and I'm gonna work my way in. Make sure you get in those cracks and crevices. So kind of go around the edge. And then I'm gonna do a couple spots on the board. They're just gonna be a little bit darker. And I don't have a lot of paint, stain on this. If you get on a deep area or a deep cut, make sure you get that stain penetrated in there. And then I'm gonna kind of work around the edges and kind of soften that harsh border up. If you wanted to, you could sand after this, or you can kind of soften it up like I'm doing now. Now my next color, I'm gonna do that lighter one, and this is Minwax Special Walnut. Now I'm gonna use my brush and go ahead and get all of this in here. Now I'm also going to do the end grain and the back side. And once this has fully dried, so dried to the touch, we're going to sand it and just distress it a little bit more. What I like to do is make sure I go around the edges and then kind of in the middle too. If you're wondering how I got that dried so fast, well, I'll tell you a little trick I do. I pop it out in the sun for a few minutes,
Not for a long time, just for a few minutes so it's nice and dry to the touch.
And there we have our distressed decorative board for only $10.
For a complete supply list and step-by-step instructions, go head over to my blog, link is below.